Oh, I've got an audience. Hello, Sophie. Okay. I don't have any firm ideas about what we're doing. I've got a couple of things that I could do while we're here live. It's Valentine's Day. It's a good day to be live, I suppose, and on our own. So I hope everyone is doing all right. I like how there's nobody here anymore. Now that I was like, I hope everyone's all right. Gone. Well, I guess I can do the cooking that I need to do, maybe. I don't know. Angle you like this. I'm gonna have to keep coming in, like looking close. I'm not wearing my glasses. Hello, hello everyone. Actually, I'm not gonna do that yet. I'm gonna get my chocolate. I'm trying to remember, how much do I want? One. Okay. I don't make these brownies every day anymore, so I gotta remind myself. Oh, cocoa. Cocoa. There we go. Hello, everyone. Oh, well, thanks for all the hearts. My microwave is so wimpy. This should be melted by now. I hope everyone out there is doing good. I'm just making brownies because they need to get made. I'm almost out, so that's what I'm doing. All right. I hope everybody's doing okay. Sorry, I'm just quiet today. I know you probably expected me to be a motor mouth, but I'm not really. Yes, I'm a quiet person. That's just the way I am as a general rule. Small cupboards. Okay. Wow. I see somebody's very interested in what I'm wearing. I'm just wearing clothes. It's not all that special. Man, you do not want lumpy cocoa. Super annoying. I don't want to have a mouthful of cocoa. Flour, lovely. There we go. Now I can put it in the pan. Yay! I need parchment. All right. Ah. Hold on. Of course, I have to screw up. It's just the way of it. Gotcha. Not normally this messy. Wow. Okay. Almost got this scraped in. Why am I making brownies? Because I'm almost out of the ones that I already have, basically. There. Now those just sit in the oven, so that's not exciting. Although watching me make them is probably not that exciting either, so anyhow. Making them with coconut? No, my last batch I made had coconut in it. I suppose I could have put some in, but I like to change them sometimes, so yeah. Oh my gosh. Ah, happy Valentine's to you. London in the UK. I guess it's late in the evening for you. It's 3:30 in the afternoon here, but I think you're 9 hours ahead, if I'm not mistaken. How have I been lately? Tired. Really tired. Do I want to hear a recipe idea? Okay. What's your idea? Is it a baked item that you're wanting to suggest, or something savory, or what? Oh, you're 2 hours ahead. That's not very much ahead. That's cool. Time zones are weird. Ah, 5:30. Ah. Well. Well. I suppose I could turn on my iron and I could sew or something. I don't know. I don't really have any firm ideas. Oh, Princess Blackie. Are you in Texas like Sophie is? Sounds like you are. What kind of music do I like? I don't know. I've gotten used to just kind of hearing what's around. I like a lot of things that most people don't. So a muffin with a ball of flavor inside. Oh, yeah, I've done that before. I often do piping when I'm working. There's a particular muffin that I have to do that's piped with lemon curd in it and glaze and has a fresh lemon wedge on top. I didn't go to work today. Well, okay, that's not really true. I work overnight, so when I go to work in the evening, I don't get home until the next day. So I got home here this morning at about 3:30 in the morning. So I worked today, technically, but it was a long time ago. I'm a baker. It's what I do. Is it my favorite? Not really, but it's something I can do that pays the bills a little. So that's that. Yeah, lemon curd is really good. I don't know if I could put music on technically, because copyright. So that's the only reason why I don't. Just because I figure, I know nobody much is going to see this stream, but I don't necessarily want it to be infringing on copyright, because that could be bad. So there you are. So I feel like I need to fill silence, and I don't have any real ideas about how. Oh, my decor. I don't really have decor. It's just stuff for the most part. Oh, that's mirror back behind me over here. That's it belonged to my grandmother a long time ago. It's got her name and stuff on it. I know you can't really see, but there's at the top there where my finger is, that's where her name is, and it says Gourmet Kitchen underneath. And it used to have school photos tucked into the frame around the edge. Those are now gone, as you can see. But while it was in her house, that's what it looked like. You could barely see the mirror anymore because there were pictures stuck in it. I've never heard Elvis Costello's My Funny Valentine. I'm wary. A lot of artists are doing that, where they're kind of trying to redo standards, and it's weird to me. I'm like, make your own songs. Why you gotta steal old ones? But oh, I'm sorry to hear that you feel sad. I think I do too, and that's why I'm extra quiet. You're into thrifting art. Interesting. I've not ever done that before, so I don't know what that would be like. Oh, you're sad about dating. Don't worry about it. I know, that's not very helpful. Oh, you're sad? Stop being sad. Like, I know that's dumb, but I find the whole prospect of dating overwhelming and uninteresting by virtue of that. People really like to play games, and I don't play games. It's not my thing. So that's why I get asked, are you on any apps? No, I'm not on any apps. I got married before we had apps, and I don't relish the prospect of being on one, quite honestly. Because, I don't know, there's just so much nonsense that, people misrepresent themselves, people, you don't know the real person when you meet them on an online interface. So that's why I'm not really into it. You make thrift items into functional kitchen tools and lamps. Oh, that's nice. I actually still have my empty bottle from Christmas of sparkling wine that I thought that would be neat to turn into a lamp, but I need to somehow cut through the glass without wrecking it, which I don't know if I can do. So I don't know if I'm gonna end up keeping that bottle or if I'm gonna just recycle it. Not sure. I'm on a dating app. It's like a resume and almost feels desperate. Oh man. Find something cool. Learn about the artist. Oh, I've never found in a thrift store, I've never found anything that's like by an artist before. It's just generic, pictures in frames, or, it just looks like it was donated by somebody's estate. A lot of times when I've found these kinds of things in the thrift store. So it's cool though, if you find interesting stuff. I'm being really uninteresting. The timer and counters up there at the top of my screen are daunting. Oh, I know. It costs a lot of money to frame art. That's why whenever I finish something, I just keep it in a drawer because I never have the money to get it framed. So, like cross stitches and stuff, they just sit in a drawer. Because I'm like, I don't want to spend $500 to frame it and all that stuff. I don't have that, so I'm not going to do it. I'm inclined to just get a frame and do it myself more than anything. Yeah. That's where you get frames from. Making stuff from stuff that's that old is hard for somebody like me because I've moved a lot over the years, so I don't have the luxury of being able to keep things for very long. I've got some stuff like fabric and things and quilt tops and things that I've made, yeah, over a decade ago, and those are kind of the oldest things of my own. I have tons of old things, but those kind of came to me later. So, uh, I wish I could hold on to stuff, but I don't have the luxury, unfortunately, of space. So if I don't have a plan for it, as a general rule, if I don't have a plan, then I won't keep it. Just be like, I've had this item for years and years and I'm still not doing anything with it. I guess I'm never going to. And that's hard to do sometimes, but it's what I must a lot of times. Yeah, too much stuff is a problem. I already have too much. I have to go through all of my ridiculous jewelry making supplies. I have so much stuff. Like, and it's not even just the consumables like beads and thread and wire and all of that. There's all the tools associated with it too, like all your pliers and flush cutters and just ring mandrels. I've got a couple of those. There's lots of tools that you acquire too, and you're just like, where do I put it all? I don't know. I didn't envy my dad and my aunt because when my grandparents both died, they had to clean out the house where they lived. My grandparents lived in the same house for 67 years or so, something like that. Close anyway. And so when they died, it was a huge chore to go through because when you live in a place for 65+ years, man, I remember going into the basement and finding lawn darts that were in the ceiling rafters. Somebody, like my grandfather, I guess, put them in the ceiling rafters, just lawn darts. Like, they could fall down and decapitate you, but there they are in the ceiling. And they just stayed there because they never moved. Oh, eclairs. I haven't had one of those in a really long time. Oh, that's cool. I used to have a black cat too. I've had a couple, actually. Interestingly, my most recent black cat is Sophia. That's her name. And the very first black cat that I had was Major. Yeah, Sophia, my cat, is a tuxedo cat. And she's got these little, like, white, just the very tips of her toes are white. And it's so, so cute because she's very mischievous. So it makes sense that she's got these little, like, spots of, like, white paint on her toes. It suits her. Whereas Sophia, she lives with her brother Henry and her sister Victoria with my ex-husband. They all live together. Years ago, we adopted the whole litter of cats. And they're 8 years old now already. It's crazy. Yeah, I know. I would have taken one cat when I moved, but the building here doesn't allow any animals, so I wasn't allowed. My ex was like, "Do you want a cat? Please take a cat." I hate having 3 cats. I'm like, can't, sorry. Otherwise, I would have at least 2, probably. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I would definitely have 2, so they can keep each other company when I'm not around. But not allowed. It would be great if they would like change the legislation on that and let a person have a companion animal, you know, especially if they're prone to depression and that kind of thing. It really matters. It really makes a difference. I'll actually like go to the pet store sometimes just to see other animals. Well, there's only 7 minutes left on my brownies according to the timer. We'll see if they're actually baked. Ah, hello, Foxy the enthusiast. Oh yeah. One of our cats was a cow cat too, Henry. Big guy. Big guy. It was a good name that we chose for Henry. Cuz he's grown into a big dude. He's a little over 20 pounds. He's big. And a cow cat. What I find hilarious about him is that he's like got the weakest, shyest little meow. It's like a squeak, not really a meow, but he's this big, like, burly guy. So funny. Oh, did I call it cake? I meant brownies. Brownies are not really cake. They're their own thing. Oh, she's a stocky girl. Yeah, that litter of cats was interesting. There's Henry, who's this really big guy. He's solidly 21 or 22 pounds. Sophia is the middle-sized cat. She was smaller than that, but she's sturdy too. Yeah, she's a sturdy girl. She was probably similar, probably 13 or so pounds. And little Victoria, she's the runt. She's really little, significantly littler, smaller. That's the word. Than the others. She's probably more like 5 pounds, kind of tops. She's really little and delicate. You could scoop her up with, just your hand. I'm out of water. I'm gonna go get some. All right. Yeah, adopting those cats was pretty funny actually because we put our first cat down because he had cancer, so he had to be put to sleep, and we did. And it was just the worst. I just felt like it was awful. And then the tenant in the basement of the house we were living in, her cat just had a litter. And they were in a little cardboard box and, with a little fuzzy blanket in the bottom and just three of them, these little wee things. And I was like, I can't pick one. Look at them. They're all so amazing. Oh. And my, then husband and our kid was like, yeah, we love them all. We want to take them all. So that's why we ended up with all of them. Because you can't pick. I could never go to like a pet store or something. Like, forget it. All the cats would come home with me, and dogs too. I like dogs too sometimes. I'm less of a dog person, but I would take them home over having them be in kennels all day. That's no way to live. So, oh yeah, I did do the bundt cake pan. It's over that way. There it is. I don't know if you can see it. Reverse mirror image. It's there. It's that purple and yellow thing. No, my ex-husband isn't remarried. As far as I know, he's not dating anybody either. So, and that's all right. That's his prerogative to do whatever he would like to do with his life at this point. He's allowed. No, I don't want him back. No, that never happened. I've heard that happens to some people. Um, Never happened with me, but yep. I hold out faith too that a person will find me somehow one day. Well, that's interesting that your mom and dad got back together. My mom kind of flirted with the idea, but I was like, no, man, what are you talking about? Don't do that. Plus, dad doesn't want you, remember? He kind of booted you out. All right. It's time to go and check and see if these things are done. Let's see. Where's my toothpicks? I saw them before. Where are they? There they are. A few more minutes. Unsurprising. It's not done. Big surprise, right? This oven is cold. There. Yeah, I remember this is why when my mom started talking about being, maybe considering trying to reconcile with my dad, um, I was like, don't you remember the night before I got married? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, the night before I got married, you were an absolute psycho. It was embarrassing, actually. Um, so you don't want to be with him. He brings out characteristics that are probably not the greatest in you, and that's why you're not together anymore, right? Just throwing it out there. So I'm glad that I think the message got through because nothing further came of that, and I was like, yes, good, good, good. Yeah. You don't have a good picker? Aw. Yeah, the online thing is really hard. Like, really. Even if it's not via like an app, I found that it's confusing as all hell, because people don't always know how to write very well. So it's hard to understand like if they're being funny or if they're being rude or neutral or what, because you can't hear them and they're not using punctuation, or some people, they rely heavily on like emojis, but others really don't, so you're kind of left wondering like, um I'm confused. Are what do you mean? Sometimes I've actually had to come out to people and just say that and be like, I don't know what you're trying to say. Are you trying to be friendly or flirty or something? I don't know. I actually did that recently over a text with somebody. I was just like, I don't understand the deal here. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. I do try and be direct with people, with regard to that stuff, because yeah, like there's a lot of, in my experience, of course, it's going to be different for everybody, but in my case, one person in particular, he was texting me a lot, like really a lot. Like I would answer a question that he had, and then boom, there would be like five more messages and like links to music videos that he likes and all this. And, I was just trying to like live my life and do my things like I do. And so I was kind of like, I don't have any time to like go listening to these songs and stuff. Are we friends, or I don't know what we're trying to be here. Um, but yeah, it got overwhelming. I do use emojis in texting with people, especially if I don't know them very well, then I will. But a lot of people just don't know how to articulate themselves through written word. It's very, very interesting considering how much communications we have via text now, right? It's weird. You'd think, there goes my oven again. You'd think that they would have a good idea of what they're doing. You'd think. All right, let's see. Perfect. Awesome. Now I'll just leave the oven door open, get the extra heat in here. It's cold. Yeah, I think now that I'm thinking about it, it's not just communicating with text necessarily that people struggle with. It's the nuance, because it all depends on the way you read something, right? If you're in kind of a crummy mood, you can read a message from somebody and interpret it as a rude statement, even if it wasn't intended to be from them. You know, we have our own stuff going on too that people don't always know about. So that can lead to confusion as well. Gen Z, trying to disguise as older. I don't know. I've noticed it, and again, I feel like if you don't know me, you might think that I'm being rude in saying this, but I genuinely don't mean it as such. I just feel like, and again, I sound like an old fogey too. People don't know how to read anymore. But I've been asked to read things that people have written over the years. And most recently, there was a person on TikTok. Hello, Robin. And she really wanted me to read this book that she'd self-published, which immediately kind of made me a little wary because I was like, oh, it's self-published. Okay. And again, that sounds like I'm being rude. And I don't mean to sound that way. I just mean that that's one of the problems with self-publishing is there is no real editor involved. You're just editing your own work and, you know, printing it through Amazon or wherever, right? So yeah, when I got a copy of the book, I got it probably 8 months ago, and I still haven't finished reading it because it's constant run-on sentences and thoughts that don't quite link back up. And so I'm just perpetually confused, and I have to like read the whole thing again. And, you know, if I have to do that much work, then I don't really want to read the book, you know? And that's why it's been sitting there at my nightstand for months. And I feel bad because she's a really nice lady and I like her, but I'm like, that's not how we write though. You can't write that way if you expect your reader to do that much work to follow along what you're trying to say. Like, they're not going to. Plain and simple. 49 degrees. 49 degrees. I think that's probably similar to what it's like here. I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, I think that's in the kind of teens. Well, Now I just need to wait for my brownies to cool and my frosting to continue to thaw in the fridge, and then I can put icing on my brownies, but not now. One is frozen and the other just out of the oven, so very hot. Wrong temperatures. Technical writing, that's kind of the opposite extreme. I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do that either. It's kind of like when I was a kid in the arts. When I was abroad, I had to do a drafting course. I always liked drawing, but then I had to learn how to draft. Traditional drafting. There was no computer assistance. This was all done at desks with rulers and all of this, rulers and scales and stuff. And I hated that so much. It was the worst. I was like, this is so boring, and I never get the angles right, and I just... What would be a hell no for you? Technical writing? Is that what you mean? I'm trying to keep track of what you're reacting to there. Ah, technical writing, yeah. You sat on your desk or at your desk? Not trying to be annoying and technical, but just sounds like you were sitting on top of a desk. Yeah, even when I was a university student, you had books, physical books. I didn't have a computer at all, certainly not a laptop, and tablets were not a thing in those days. So everything was handwritten on paper, and all my books were physical books. I was mostly joking. I assumed that you meant sitting, in a chair behind a desk that had your books on it, but since we were talking about those things. Yeah, yeah, I can't do architecture. I can't do that kind of stuff. No way. It's just as draining as trying to do an office job. Ooh, I can't do those. Hmm, physical books are better. Well, they can be sometimes. It's not the be all end all, but I like the ability to kind of, I mean, obviously it depends on the book. You don't necessarily want to go highlighting passages in just any old book, but most of the books that I have are course texts, so those get highlighted. And they have marginal notes too, so that I can, and flags and stuff, so I can find what I'm looking for. I wouldn't do that to a regular book, but that's one of the aspects of having physical books that I kind of like. So, as a landscape architect, do you do the gardening as well, or do you hire people to do that part for you? Or are you lucky enough to be able to grow plants and take care of them yourself? I can't. Not a chance. Tried once. that was a disaster. Oh, that's cool if you can, yeah. My old boss actually did that recently over the summer. This last summer, she was doing landscaping work. I'm like, yeah, see, that would be something I could never do just because I can't make things grow. But I also understand that if you can do it yourself, it's a lot cheaper than hiring somebody else. We used to have a townhouse a very, very, very long time ago with a teeny tiny front little, not a lawn, it was a patch, just a square. And it was like our biggest nightmare. We could never take care of it. We had to hire somebody to take care of this little teeny tiny thing because my ex-husband and I were both like, how does things, we can't garden. What's that? We're city people. Well, it's been a little while. Hopefully it's been kind of, I don't know, a little bit interesting or entertaining. This is the reality, I guess, of having a tiring job and not a lot of support and trying to manage. It's harder than it might seem, but I'm also not trying to complain. Okay, my nail just broke really low, so I have to go and clip it and get my nail file and fix that because that's gonna be a problem for me. Let me get my clipper. Oh, I forgot. I already had a file right here. I am not alone. Well, I am and I'm not. It's strange. That's a song I remember liking years and years and years ago, 30 years ago. Too bad it was written and sung by divisive characters. Oops, sorry. Yeah, that's an organic version of a song that I liked as a kid. You Are Not Alone, but I realize it's kind of not aged very well. It's an R. Kelly song that Michael Jackson sang, so that's loaded. But that song was on an album that was popular 30 years ago, and I was indeed very much in a lonely and terrible time back then. So it's interesting what music comes along. There's still some heat coming out of that oven. That's nice. Back when you were 21? Does that mean you were 21 30 years ago? Is that the implication there? Not sure. I was 14, 31 years or 30 years ago. So that's my age difference. Mm. My birthday is in March. Um, I'll be 44 on March 9th. Yeah, my birthday is close. I'm very aware of the closeness of it because I had to. My sister's birthday is 2 weeks before mine, and I had to get her gift in the mail so that she gets it in time. And hopefully it gets there in time because her birthday is on the 21st and it's the 14th now. So let's hope that it gets there. Yeah, mine's not until the 9th of March at least, but we'll see if anything happens as a result. It's kind of been a strange year this year for things. Because, yeah, I think I got a cake. Comment about the self-editing. Oh, yeah. I just, I know that it sounds, I know that it sounds rude to kind of say that traditional publishing is better in some sort of a way because it sounds like I'm being elitist, but that's the reason traditional publishing is the way it is because there is a standard that you have to meet, right? Like we can't be having typos everywhere and we can't be having run-on sentences and fragments and thoughts that don't align and just obvious first draft problems that we all make. Like we all have that happen when we write, with very, very rare exception. So it's not like her book is bad inherently, it's just that it was printed too soon. And when you're not an editor yourself, it can be hard to know, is this fit to print or not? And that's the idea about having, editors read and either accept or reject. It's hard. I left my ex-husband in July of 2023. So about a year and a half. Yes, I am a Pisces. Me and my sister are both Pisces because we're only 2 weeks apart in our birthdays. So the wrong word for fish. Yeah, that's one of the struggles that I have too with writing, is that you can just edit and 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 edit to to oblivion, and still not be satisfied. Ask how I know. One day I could probably pull them out, but I've got just drafts. Some poems that I worked on, like in university, I drafted some of those things like 15, 20 times. Like, it was insanity, the amount of drafting I used to do. Oh, funny, your sister and you are 10 days apart. Yeah, mine is, February 21st and I'm March 9th. Mom went into the hospital, I remember, when I was 3, and, came home a few days later, and it was my birthday, and I turned 4. Oh, Vera Lynn. Does anybody here remember Vera Lynn? Remember how she said that we would meet again some sunny day. Oh, birthdays are interesting. My grandma and my mom are like that. Grandma went into the hospital and had my mom, grandma's birthday is July 15th and my mom's birthday is July 16th. So they always had to have these joint birthday parties. I think they still do. Well, you're welcome. I don't know how useful it is right now for me to be talking away, but yeah, when editing, writing, it's hard when it's your own work to not just be constantly hatcheting away at your work, because I kept a lot of the drafting that I did of my own stuff, and if you look at the first iterations of a poem and then like what I would have handed out for workshopping purposes, it's like they were totally different pieces of writing entirely, because from point A to I want to say B, but it's kind of further than B. the spirit of everything would kind of, there was a tendency to lose that. So there is a balance to be struck, and that's where fresh eyes kind of looking at your stuff really, really helps, in my view. Because when it's always just you looking at it, you read what you wrote, and because you have benefit of knowing what you're writing about, right? You know the tone of in which you meant a particular passage or whatever you're looking at. But a reader doesn't. So when you get that experience of another person reading what you wrote, and you're able to be in the same room as them, it's really handy because they can give you their initial reaction, and they can interpret something completely differently than what you intended. Sometimes it's amazing. So it's useful to have that separation like that. Ah, there's been a few comments, sorry. You're not sure why you're drawn to my content. Oh, well, I mean, I guess that's okay. AI. Well, I think it will certainly be exploited by some. No question about that. But something I've heard is that one thing AI just cannot do is, at least not yet, is create poetry. They can't. They always get found out. I think it was a TED Talk or something. I forget. It was something legitimate. Anyway, on YouTube, it was a video, and the speaker was saying, yeah, like they submitted to human editors, I think 1 or 2 poems written by humans, and then a few that were generated through AI. And the human editors could tell that this was written by AI and this isn't. And they were able to weed it out like every time. Obviously, there was no identifying names or anything on the pages, right? It was a blind test just to see. And apparently AI is not there yet, which is kind of a relief. But at the same time, I could see that it's useful too. I'm just reading. I'm not just vacantly staring, I promise. Yeah. I would say, yeah, AI is most intimidating, in my estimation anyway, for video content, right? Like I notice when I upload videos now to YouTube, you actually have to declare whether your video contains content that actually existed or not. It's like a thing you have to select now, kind of like when you upload and you have to select if your video was made for kids or not made for kids now, right? Because AI generated stuff is so common, which this leads me on a tangent. Oh my God. Yeah, it's intimidating, that they can do so much with people's likenesses and stuff. And like, I stumbled onto what I thought was an Alan Watts talk, and I was listening to it carefully, and because as we probably know, I don't know if it's common knowledge or not, I'll just kind of say it. Alan Watts died in 1973 ish. It was like the early 70s when he died. And it was interesting because I was listening to this video that sounded like him, but there was all these weird little mentions of stuff that wouldn't have been around at the time when he would have been talking about spiritual matters. There's talk of, technologies that were non-existent, like in any way in those days. And there's also this funny thing that AI voices will do. They will read the punctuation sometimes. One time I was listening to one of these videos and it said space dot. Because I guess in the script that it was saying, there was like a space and then a period at the end of a sentence. So it read it that way. And I was like, whoa, okay, interesting, weird. But they can make the voice sound like anything that you want. So I find I have to be more careful with what I'm watching because of that. How are they? They're done. They're sitting there cooling. I'll let them cool completely, and later I'll put the icing on and throw them in the freezer. That's usually what I do with them. You've never had brownies with icing on them? Interesting. I have. I also have had brownies that have cookie on the bottom. It makes a cool crust if you make a cookie dough and then bake that for a short time, and then you put your brownie batter on top and then bake that all together. It works good. Yeah, brownies can be plain with nothing on them if you want, but yeah, I have some chocolate icing that I made a little while ago, and it's just thawing for me right now in the fridge, and I'll put it on there when I'm done. But yeah, you can play with icing flavors with your brownies. You can have like strawberry icing. That's really nice. Coconut, that kind of thing. All right, well, that water has gone through me. I just need to quickly go to the bathroom, so that's what I'm going to do. BRB. I should get like a sign. BRB. better now. Oh, I'm seeing lots of roses. Aw, flowers. Oh, Sophie, you're 5 feet tall? I feel like I'm suddenly very, very tall. I'm used to being the short one. I'm 5'5", so I'm not very tall. Yeah, I'm rarely taller than people, especially if it's by a significant amount. One of my colleagues actually at work is 4'11". When I first met her, I was like, oh, you're very small. Like, obviously I didn't say anything, but I thought it. I was like, oh, you're so little, wow. Because it doesn't seem to bother her or cause any problems for her to be as small as she is. We have these double stack ovens and that are, three shelves a piece, and she's still reaching up. It's like way over her head, but she reaches up and gets, hot trays of baked muffins and stuff out of that oven. I saw her doing it once and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That's like over your head and it's really hot. I feel compelled to do that for you because I'm that much taller. So, but her build does not seem to be a struggle for her to do stuff. So it's actually kind of refreshing. Yeah, there's some people out there that are under 5 feet. It's little. Oh, well, you're welcome, Paige. Rare and important topics. Well, that's nice to hear somebody say, because so often it feels like what I produce as a general rule is not very important. People don't necessarily connect with it, and that's a bummer. So I remember I had running shoes that were platforms. They looked like regular Converse or Vans kind of runners, but the sole on them was like 2.5 inches. So those were really cool. I had a few pair of strange shoes like that in the 90s. Yeah, I can look after her. I feel particularly protective of her because she's actually pregnant right now. So all of the carrying and lifting that we have to do when she and I work together, which is rare, but when we do, I'm always like, put it down. I'm doing that. You're pregnant. Don't do that. Same way I'm like, don't climb on that. I will do that. She's just so used to doing it all herself all the time. And I'm like, don't, you are having a baby. We must be careful. But I'm also old compared to her. I'm older than people. That's the other thing. I'm used to being not the tallest, and I'm getting used to being the oldest, because that's usually what happens now. 'Cause I'm the oldest. Well, I'm glad, Paige, that you that you connect, because it's the worst feeling in the world, no lie, that that, because I know that if I'm thinking these things, certainly other people out there are thinking these things, but they're hard to find. So it's hard when you're trying to make content when you don't have a particular audience yet, because you're just kind of making videos and being like, I hope somebody sees this, click upload, and maybe somebody will see it, maybe they won't. It's hard to say. Also, it sounds like your sister is taller than you. I think mine is taller than me too. I think. Yeah, she's due in April. I'm not exactly sure when she's gonna be having the baby, but it's in April. So she's working less, which is good. This has been a hard pregnancy for her. I feel so bad. She's really struggled with sickness, just being completely wiped out. And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. That's the pits. I always feel bad for that when that happens. Oh, you come from a big family. I think my sister is, if she's not taller than me, she's like the same. Like I don't think I'm any taller than her. But I don't like look up at her either when I see her. Mind you, I don't see her very often. So that's why I'm struggling to remember. I'm like, do I look up? No, I don't look up. No. I don't have a post office box. My mom would call herself 5'7" as well, but she's not. She's more like 5'6" 3/4. But height, height was always a huge, stupid vanity thing in our family. On my mom's side, it was always like, well, you have to be tall in order to be a real person or something. I used to get constantly mocked for not being as tall as them. And I'm just like, okay, why does that impact someone's value? How tall they are? It shouldn't. It shouldn't matter at all, quite honestly. No, I feel like you don't think many people want to talk about tougher topics. Well, yeah, it's intense, right? Like, that's the other thing I got told a lot. You're short, you're fat, you're intense, shut up. Those were kind of the things I heard a lot. So, but that's why I was intense, was because I was trying to figure a lot of things out that the adults around me were not trying to figure out. I had questions and no answers. So that's why I was constantly thinking and brooding and trying to figure out what's going on. And it's intimidating to other people who are scrolling through their YouTube feed, right? If they see a picture of, for a video, a thumbnail, I should say, that's, about something like poetics or death or healing or something like that, chances are more than likely they're going to be like, wow, that's really intense. Scroll, scroll, scroll. I don't have time for that. I just want to be entertained, right? Like I get where they're coming from, but I also get that I'm not an entertainer. So I can't make content to cater to that either. So it's a tough position for all to be in. Yeah, one of my main sort of struggles, I would say, is not venturing into these kinds of tricky topics. That's just sort of where I'm focused. It's where I go. So it's hard to have like regular kind of small talk with people. Just a couple weeks ago, I was at a work event and there was like, I guess everybody was just too busy for December, and then January kind of just slipped by. So they organized like a sort of Christmas kind of party where we were supposed to show up at a bowling alley, and so we were going to bowl a few games, and they provided food and drink for us and all that. It was very nice, but it was so weird because I was kind of like, unless I'm talking about our work, I don't know what else to say because I don't have a lot of small talk skills. So in those kind of situations, I just kind of stand, and in this case, I had my, ginger ale that I was drinking. I was like, I don't have anything to say because I don't know how. You're fine with any topic except politics. Politics, yeah. It's really hard to just not with politics nowadays. It's like virtually impossible. There's a lot of overlap. I've heard of Julia Stiles, but I can't place what she looks like. I'm very out of touch when it comes to popular culture. I admit that. Yeah, I remember a time. I remember a time when it was just a matter of leaning kind of one way or another way, more so than another. But I remember a time when politics, the fieriest it would ever get, is over like Christmas dinner or something like that, and everybody's got that uncle or whoever who is kind of a distant relative that you don't see very often, but they're complaining about usually conservative talking points, carrying on about things are too expensive, people get too many handouts, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I'm just trying to eat my dinner here. I don't really want to get into an argument with you. Like you could kind of avoid it. Whereas now it's like, it's just so permeated into so many areas. It's like hard to, even here, it's hard to walk down the street sometimes without having a political thought. Because you see something and interact with something in your daily life. You're like, wow, that's being affected because of world events. So, yeah, it's polarizing times, and it's also difficult to kind of, yeah, just separate from those political leanings that we have, just because you'll be in, a huge debate with somebody and questioning, if you can even continue your relationship with them, just because views are so polarized right now, and nobody wants to listen or consider anything, and it's hard. Oh. Well, those teeth. I've had a lot of work done on my teeth. So it's kind of weird when people comment about what my smile looks like and stuff. I'm like, it's all orthodontic treatment. This isn't what anybody looks like in my family, but cosmetics, I remember years ago people asked me if, I remember being compared to Renee Zellweger years and years ago, back when she was really getting popular. She was in a few movies back then in a row, like Chicago, and I think Bridget Jones's Diary was around there, something like that. She was in a lot of different things, I remember, about 20 years ago now. What made me decide to start my channel? Well, the channel is old. I started it, I guess, in 2006. Yeah, people have and did compare me to Renee Zellweger, and I was like, I look like I'm squinting all the time and I'm pursing my lips? That's too bad. I don't want to look like that. I'm just teasing. But anyway, I started my channel a long time ago and thought that it would be like an education kind of channel, just to kind of show off, skills that I had and all that. But I did not have and do not have the technical skill for making those kind of videos. I've learned that thoroughly. I can't shoot technical things. I can explain what I'm doing, but I can't show it very well. So that's why I stopped doing that. And I don't know, I just thought it was maybe worth trying to resurrect, because I didn't upload videos to YouTube for years, 5. I tried a different channel, but it never caught on. So I thought, well, I'll go back to my my original channel and see what happens. And I have more people following me now, which is nice. Although the post-Christmas kind of honeymoon seems to have faded. So though I have, you guys all here, which is really cool, other people fell out of love. So that's sad. But obviously they just weren't my people, I suppose. It also felt like the right time to start my reboot kind of my channel a little, because after leaving my married life and stuff, there's kind of a sense of like I can spread out a little bit. I found that I couldn't just do my own thing online when I was still married, if that makes sense. It just felt like I shouldn't, so I didn't. But now feels a little bit easier, although it's still intimidating. If people that are from my family see what I'm doing, that always feels awkward, because I don't know, families are like that. So it's cold now. Wow, it's 5 o'clock. What should I do? Yes, Paige, I am in BC. You are right. How did you know that? I don't think I mentioned it. I think what I should do Oh, I look like somebody from there. Well, BC's a pretty big place, so I'm sure that I'm probably not the person you're thinking of, but I am here. That's true. I used to be in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island. Long time I spent there, but I'm not there now. I'm way further inland, so Don't jump on a dating website. No, I wasn't going to. I don't know. Like, I'm guessing that any of you here would probably be of the same ilk as me, as in, like, what are we trying to achieve with dating websites? Because they're just like a sleazier version of social media. Quite honestly, I that's the feeling, at least to me. It's, social media, but with this kind of, sexual undertone, and it's just like, I don't want to engage with that. Yeah, this time of year, I imagine people are frantically dating or looking for a date on, like, for tonight kind of a thing. Wouldn't surprise me, which is another reason why I kind of stay away, is people can mistake friendliness for, like, a great romantic gesture. And you're just like, whoa, hold on, I just wanted to be polite. I didn't mean to, like, start a relationship with you. Sorry. It's the worst feeling. Yeah, I think, to your point, Robin, I think that's sort of where I'm at, is like, it's not all about romantic love to feel joy, or to feel like, to have a good sense of well-being, if that makes sense. Like, it's happened a couple of times, like over Instagram and stuff. Like, now I just don't even look at messages anymore, for the most part, unless I know the person sending it. But for the most part, I'm just like, what are you on about? Like, one guy who is a total stranger to me was like liking all my photos and videos and stuff, and kind of begging me to, complete him, using language like that. And I'm just like, whoa, settle down. I don't know you. You're a total stranger on the internet. Kind of grossing me out. Don't like it. you know? But I also don't want to be rude. Nor in telling this story do I ever want to sound like I am self-aggrandizing and trying to make myself sound like something that I'm not. But yeah, it's hard. The whole notion that people have about romance. It's all lies, like all of it. Oh, chocolate covered strawberries are really good. You're not wrong. Oh, and I'm glad you liked the lemon cranberry video. I've already eaten one of those. It's gone. I have the other one. There's one left from that video, because I really like that stuff. It's super good. It's like my favorite breakfast. I pull a slice out of the freezer and have that on the weekends and things. When I'm going to work, I'm happy to get some toast and have, peanut butter, but not on a day off. Anyway. Yeah, I feel like that's what's been happening with me online lately when talking to people. And I'm like, again, I'm not on any of the apps, but people will solicit me as though we are on an app. I actually told a guy, like, if you're looking for someone to date, how about using an app for dating, not Instagram and randomly messaging me? Just saying. That was back when I would actually give people an answer. Now I'm just like, clearly you're just soliciting, so bye-bye. But at one time I was trying to be polite. I know, married couples, yeah. I think that's why when I was married, my husband and I, we kept, he had his social media, I had my social media. Very, very rarely did we appear on each other's. Come to think of it, it was rare. So, and yeah, it's just curated, you know, here's perfect pictures from my trip to Florence or, something like that, right? And it's just like, that's great. How many fights did you have on that trip? That's what I want to know. What went wrong on that trip? Married women, yeah. Yeah, there's this pressure, right, to be perfect all the time, especially if you're a woman. Like, god damn, like we don't get any kind of a break about that stuff. Everything's got to be perfect all the time, and if it isn't, then you're a bad person, or you're not trying hard enough, or something, which is mean and judgmental. That's the thing. Well, I think there is a certain amount of, yeah, pressure that we apply to ourselves, but there's also this external pressure too, usually from other women. Uh, I know I've told this story before, but it bears repeating every now and again that I have, in my own life, women have been worse to me than men, as a general rule. When I need help or something, it will be met with more resistance if I'm dealing with another woman. Uh, Even if it's something directly like related to female health, even. I had the worst experience with a female gynecologist. She was so awful. I needed a surgery. I told her this. I was like, I need a referral to a surgeon, please. And she said, oh, I'm going to do a needle biopsy. Lay down, it's going to hurt. Like, zero feeling, zero bedside manner whatsoever. I was just like appalled. And I went and met with a surgeon, and he was a man. I told him what my problem was and who my referring doctor was, and he's like, oh, yes, I know her. I get a lot of her patients. And did he hassle me about the surgery I needed? Absolutely not. He just said, yep, that's a problem. We need to fix it. Done. Super easy. No resistance whatsoever. But it was like that growing up too. It was never my dad, for example, hassling me about what I looked like or what I sounded like when I said something or whatever. It was always my mom and, all the women in the family. Oh, you're short. Oh, you've gained some weight. Do you really need to eat that? Look at your hair. What is wrong with your hair? What is wrong with your makeup? It was all the women. Like, honestly. And I'm not trying to belittle anybody. I'm just saying what happened as a general rule. It was always women criticizing me, and the men that I grew up around couldn't have cared less like about that stuff. They were just like, whatever, it's okay if your hair is out of place or you're not wearing lipstick. For shame. Yeah, with, yeah, being kind of misunderstood, especially as a kid when you're growing up, is makes life as an adult extra tricky for me because I'm always thinking about how I'm coming across and if I'm being understood or not. And I need to clarify things and I need to qualify everything I say because somebody might get mad at me or something. And I can't have that because that means I'm bad and I can't be bad. Like it's weird to be in your 40s and yet still kind of thinking like that. I'm really trying to stop because I know that it's not normal. It comes from growing up in a dysfunctional family. It also makes it hard as an adult if you're trying to create content for people too, like this kind of thing, because you know, people can bump into it and start with the triggering statements and you're just like, I don't want to do this. I would much rather lead a very private, solitary life. But this is the world we're living in. So you've been here once? Well, that's cool that you've been here before. Most people that I know online in the online space have not been here. So that's cool that you have. And it's funny because I know different places will have different accents, even in Canada, although I find it a little bit harder to hear than, say, England or the UK as a general rule, or the US or another English-speaking area. Within Canada, it's harder to notice, unless you're from the East, obviously. You can tell someone from the East. Anti-trend content. Oh, so you must have found me, Paige, as like a 40 plus or whatever creator. I know that that's supposed to be the new cool. It feels like it's less cool now than it was even a couple of months ago, but I also appreciate that these things are just trends that come and go, and people think that they've cracked the algorithm, right? And they start making videos all about it. And I'm like, don't do that. You're giving the playbook away and they're gonna just change the playbook. Did that not occur? I don't know if it really occurred to people. That's why I didn't want to become one of those YouTube channels for people over 40 or 50, being like, hey, create content. It's a really good thing to do. Because I noticed that those channels I'm seeing them less. And because it became a trend or a niche in itself, which is so lame. That's sort of why I'm kind of against the whole niche thing that is so popular right now. Because as soon as that niche somehow becomes obsolete, now what do you do, right? Yeah, it's hard when you hear a lot of just constant and consistent negative information. Like that's sort of why I have like a very quick stress, sort of like 0 to 100 when it comes to stress response, like in the workplace, for example. Like, oh my God, I get so stressed when I'm getting paid any attention because I'm so used to attention being equivalent to negativity. Even if somebody is saying something nice, I'll still be like, yeah, feeling stressed out about this. What are you gonna tell me that's actually bad? Are you like, I'm always waiting for a shoe to drop all the time. You're telling me something nice now, but I know in the next breath you're gonna tell me I'm fired or something terrible that I don't want to hear. So no attention equals good, positive, excellent. Any attention at all? Bad, negative, no. So that's what's hard about content stuff. Well, I happened to read a book. I used to think I was just strange for the shoe thing. But I read a book over the summer when my ankle was broken, and I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. My doctor suggested that I read a book called The Struggle for Intimacy. So I got a copy and read it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense now. It's not just me, it's because I grew up with parents who were not emotionally available people, and I don't say that to belittle them in any way. They didn't have childhoods. My parents were not kids, like normal kids. You're not a normal kid. In my dad's case, you don't have a normal childhood when your parents are immigrants right after the war to a new country and you're their firstborn son. No, 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 no. That means you're busy working and the expectations are very, very high. Uh, so you don't have time to really mess around and play and have fun like a kid. In my mom's case, she was raised in a violent alcoholic home. You don't have fun. That's not allowed in that environment. So both my parents coming together and having me and my sister as their kids, like, we were not allowed to be like normal kids, really, in the grand scheme. Some stuff we were allowed to do that they wouldn't have been allowed, but not a lot though. Like when it was just me and my sister and our parents together at home, like if the house was quiet, as in the TV was on and people were not really talking much, that meant things were okay. If people were like trying to discuss something, it was bad. Um, it's weird to think, but that's what the backgrounds that my parents brought with them, that's what those things taught, ended up teaching me. I won't say that for my sister, she's her own person, but for me, that's what I really took away from it is like, okay, I'm not supposed to talk much, I'm not supposed to ask questions, I'm not supposed to be curious about anything, I'm not supposed to have fun, which is, why I think it's still a struggle even now. For my sister and I, because I had an easier time because of my personality. It was easier for me to just kind of recede into the background because I was always writerly and I would draw or paint. I did things that were quiet activities, so my parents liked that. My sister is a musician, so she's the opposite. She makes a lot of noise all the time, and she always did. And therefore, she got scolded more for being loud, even though she wasn't really loud, really, in the grand scheme. But I did have an easier time of that, no lie. Let's see. Re-regulated. Oh, interesting. I found it helpful to read that book. I forget the name of the doctor who wrote it, but it's called The Struggle for Intimacy. You can get it on Amazon. It's easy to get. It's old. I think it came out in like 1990, but very informative about what it's like to grow up with alcoholic or addicted parents, one or both parents. Very useful. Not that my parents were alcoholics, they weren't, but my mom grew up with one, so it was kind of like being raised by one in a way, because she kind of passed on all of those coping skills that she would have learned in that environment, and, you know, went on to have her own struggles with things. So there's a reason why these patterns repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. Yeah, my sister is a full-time musician now. It's, I have a lot of feelings about it just because it feels like all our lives so far, she kind of complained a lot about how I received different treatment than her. And now she's experiencing a great deal more success than I am. And so it's kind of like, is it really that bad? Do you really still feel like I got preferential treatment and got a better life than you? I don't know if that's very fair. And it's hard to be the quiet one when, because that's the thing that always made it hard for me with my sisters, because she was the funny one. She was the one who could play piano. She was the one who could do impressions with her voice. She was the one who made people laugh. I was not that person. I was busy trying to figure out the meaning of life. Why are we here doing this thing called being alive? This is so crazy to me. Even as an adolescent and into my teenage years, yes, I was thinking about these things. It's the absolute truth, not exaggerating. I really wanted to figure out what in the frick this whole thing is. Like, why? Why? It's just problem after problem after problem. Always hungry. We're always too hot. We're always too cold. We can't get along. You know, these kinds of things. No. I don't like. I don't know, because of course it's her life, but she she did take time away from music. She didn't play for a long time, like after high school. And then it was actually at my kind of urging. I was like, well, you're allowed to. There's no reason why you can't, or something. So she inevitably did, you know, go back to school, and now she plays and teaches and stuff all the time. So I think she's, you know, she's okay with things now. But it's been a struggle, I would say, between us in particular this last year and a half, like ever since I left married life. Like the first time I saw my sister after I left my husband was like it was like 5 or 6 days after when I moved into this apartment, and I had boxes all over the place and it was just a disaster. I had to immediately pack a bag and leave because my grandmother died. So we saw each other then, and she immediately was like showing me her new ring. She's like, oh, we're getting married in November. And I was like, I'm happy for you. My marriage of 20 years is over. Less than a week. Kind of hard to feign enthusiasm. Just saying. And ever since then, it's been kind of a struggle. It's like we're two totally different people who don't know each other anymore. It's too bad, but at the same time, it's not overly surprising considering our family. Our family be like that. We don't really know each other all that well. So, well, I don't know if I was all that encouraging. I just kind of, like, I'm not taking credit for anything. I just kind of was like, well, you're allowed to, you know, play a piano if you want to, right? Like, she was with, her first husband was not interested in her learning and going to school and pursuing it in a serious way. So she kind of got it in her head that she shouldn't, from him. And I'm glad that that passed and that she ended up, getting at least closer to what she was maybe hoping for. It just all made me realize in my own way, like, oh, geez, I don't know what I'm actually trying to get to either. Because I met my husband almost right away as soon as I left home and started, I met him on the first day of college. And, within 6 months or so, I was not on my own anymore. I had a boyfriend, then boyfriend, and a home to take care of. So I went ahead and did that, at least as best as I could. I would do it better now. But yeah. So I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but hopefully it might have been helpful. I don't know. But yeah, there's something strange about that dynamic that I don't know if we're ever really going to figure that out, about what to kind of do. Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad that you're able to talk with your sisters again. That's good. In my case, I didn't say this recently, but probably about a year or so ago, I was just like, leave me alone. We don't need to talk. Your life turned out perfect. My life turned into a disaster. I don't want to be faced with all of your rah rah, I'm successful, I did all this great stuff, while I'm over here eking out my existence. I mean, really, I work too hard for what I get. And I just don't want to have my face rubbed in it. Thanks. Trying to make my circumstances better, but these things take time, and yeah. Well, I mean, I'm okay, but that's the other sort of reason for wanting to create content in the first place and hopefully monetize it. That would be really cool. I was on track to monetize in January, but as I said earlier, views plummeted. And so I'm not getting the view hours that I used to. But that's why I want to monetize, is so that I don't have to work this crazy job that I have. I don't need to put that much pressure on my ankle anymore. That would be really nice. 'Cause boy, oh boy, after a shift, God help me if I have 2 days in a row, my ankle does not like that. Does not like that. So I'm trying to quit. I'm trying to get out if I can, or work even fewer hours. That would be good. Well, thank you, Foxy the enthusiast. It's been quite an experience to go through all of this, because when I see the kind of content that garners millions and millions of views, like I'm thinking like stuff that my kids would watch, or his friends, and or, that kind of thing, like popular, YouTube gamers and things like that, or Twitch streamers even. I'm just like, dang, some of this content is pure trash. And it's getting so many views and replays, and it's got, tons of mid-roll ads, and like, wow. I'm over here trying to like actually contribute to the zeitgeist in some kind of a way, and everybody's just kind of like, no, we want to watch trash. It's like, that's a drag. Just saying. I have angles? Hmm. Now I'm trying to think. What are my angles? No, obviously, I'm not speaking of you guys that are here, but what I was trying to get at, I didn't get at it very well, is that it's disheartening and discouraging when you are trying to be of like actual service, and you've got loudmouth idiots, you know, I'm thinking of like back in the day when Fortnite was popular, like you got idiots like this on playing Fortnite and making videos all about it and making buttloads of money while they do this and having huge followings. And I'm just like, though entertainment is good and we all want that, not all of us are meant to be that way, in what we do. And it seems that the powers that be of various types that are in place favor the loudmouths, the people spewing nonsense, the flat out lies and deception, and just vapid nonsense. That's what gets favored, and that's what gets pushed. Anything educational or somehow informative and not catering to a mega young audience is just not appreciated in the same way. It's really sad, quite honestly. Well, thank you. that I deserve it. I am getting closer. It's coming, but I'm also grateful that they lowered the hour count It used to be 4,000 hours, now it's 3. I guess they got the message, the memo, that most people struggle to get all that time, all that view time. Especially if you're making videos that are like less than 15 minutes long, you know, which is kind of what you're obligated to make, it feels like, when you're new, is you kind of have to keep it shorter. You can't be making these great big long streams or anything like that. Or just long form video, because people don't want to watch. Integrating my channels. Well, I mean, there was a reason one was separate than this one, because I didn't know how to maybe go about doing that and just integrating, because it would make life simpler to just have one. But the other one is a little bit, I've always been self-conscious about it. So that's sort of why I created it, made a different name for myself, and just kind of had a persona over there. Okay, bye, Foxy the enthusiast. Yeah, see you later. Get some rest. Yeah, the trials and tribulations thing, I'm always a little bit kind of reticent to just kind of share, because of, like, I've thought about this a lot. And one of the things, to kind of tie back slightly to the, talking about the way that I grew up and the home in which I grew up, one of those things that I learned and just kind of had to deal with is emotional dumping. That is something that I had to cope with when you've got, and again, I'm not saying this to be rude or belittling to anybody, but when one of your parents grew up with an alcoholic home and where there was physical violence, and didn't get help for it because it was another time and people did not discuss these things at all. Well, it ended up being discussed with me, a kid who could do nothing about it except be a little miniature therapist for my parent, right? This is what happens. And I'm not saying this to be, again, rude or belittling. My mom was just doing what came natural to her. She didn't have the same kind of person to listen to her with my dad, so I was just the kid in the circumstance. So, she would tell me things that I wish I didn't need to know. So when it comes to making videos about my own life experience and sort of getting through it all, I get really concerned about, laying that all on people. I don't want to do that. I don't want somebody to see my channel, thumbnail or whatever in their feed and be like, whoa, that's heavy. I don't want to watch that. Or worse, they do want to watch it, they click on it, and then they feel like, wow, this doesn't relate to me at all. It's all about you, and I don't know you, so I'm not going to absorb this any longer. Click, new video. It's difficult. I find that's one of the harder parts, is making it not just about me and my life narrative. And that's harder than it seems. Well, I do try and watch other people and sort of see what leads, like what the thread through their thought kind of is, and see how I could potentially do the same. So I hear what you're saying. Well, I would like to think that that's one of the positives of the background that I happen to have, is uh, words were very, very important, and precision with those words was imperative. Uh, uh, yeah, I remember it being put to me years and years ago now, by my dad, if you are truly articulate, then you should be able to describe something like a discomfort in your mouth without opening your mouth and poking in your mouth to try and show where it hurts. You should be able to just say it. That's the kind of, that's what you need to do. That's what words need to do. And so, you know, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't remember saying that if I mentioned it to him today, but I remember him saying that when I was, 3, 4 years old. So it was important. And that's why it sticks, because I was like, okay, I can't just rely on showing and pointing. I have to know the words for things. There's a lot of words for things. I gotta sit down and learn all these words. It sounds funny, but it was a big challenge because I was also a French immersion kid growing up. So I was also speaking French all day when at home we were speaking English. So I felt like I was learning a lot of words. And then in the mid 90s, that "you're not alone" comment from a while ago just came back to me, that I was living abroad that year, and we were in Spain, and I suddenly had to figure out Spanish, just for kicks. I'd already spent the summer with my aunt who spoke no English, in Italy, so I had to, you know, drill into that skill, and that was hard. So precision with language has always been probably the most important thing. Um, when do I take it outside my apartment? I don't think I've ever filmed outside any place. Maybe. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I have, though. It does feel therapeutic to talk about it, but at the same time, I don't want to be um, a patient, right? That you're clicking on to watch. um, I don't want to. I don't want it to be like that, because that's a chore, and I don't want to be giving people chores. We all have enough, so. Mm. It's cool I lived in Spain. Well, I don't know. I don't relish that time. But that's when that song, "You Are Not Alone," was popular. There's another song that I liked even more than that. It's more of a deep cut, though. It's an album cut. It's called "Stranger in Moscow." if you've ever listened to Michael Jackson's History, that's the album I'm talking about. It was a double CD album. I think I still have it. I bet you I can find it. Hold on. I'm gonna find it. I think I still do have it. Did I get rid of it? No way. I did. That's incredible. Frankly, I'm surprised. Wow. Okay. I did. Well, that's certainly odd. That's not like me. I got rid of it. I used to have a copy, though, of Michael Jackson's History. It was 2 CDs. There was the greatest hits, and then there was the new album of content. And on that new content disc, there's a song called Stranger in Moscow. And I remember feeling that way greatly. So if ever you wondered what the alienation of living abroad was like, that's a good one. That's a good song for that. Because that's how it felt. It's a weird feeling. It wasn't my favorite time. I've not been back to Europe since. Life just didn't work out that way. So, unfortunately, that was that. I did. I filmed outside. Oh, interesting. Interesting questions about music. I don't really have favorites. I just kind of hear what's around, I guess. Well, it's not that I really want to travel a ton or anything. It's, I guess I get disheartened about not being able to. Because when I was originally making my life plans, I was expecting by the time I got to this age to be still married to my husband, and with our child, I was hoping that we would have 2 children originally. That was never going to happen. And I wanted to be in a position to take, our child places and go and visit. Because my ex-husband is largely British, and he enjoys all those British things. I was like, well, we should make that a long-term goal. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to travel there? And it just never came to pass. And I don't anticipate having the resources to do that on my own, really, anytime soon. So it's a bummer. That's why it's a bummer. Oh, Sade. Yeah, I haven't heard her in a long time. Depeche Mode, Bryan Adams. I've heard of them for sure. I have strange taste, probably, in music, because I actually really quit paying attention to music after about 97. I used to really enjoy. I listened to, the top 40 countdowns all the time on the radio. Every night there was like a top 10 and things like that, and every week there was a top 40, and I used to listen to them all the time. But yeah, by about 96, 97, I just totally fell out of that and ended up acquiring the hi-fi that I still have, that belonged to my, I think of him as a grandfather, but he wasn't. He was married to my grandma, but not my grandfather. He had it, and it had belonged to his mom. So I have this really old hi-fi, and I didn't have any records to play on it. So I got them back because my dad had like given my all the records that they had to my aunt, who kept them very dutifully. I don't know why she did that, but she did. So I happen to have record albums that belonged like to my mom when she was a teenager, which is kind of fun because they have her name on them, like her initials and stuff, which is kind of fun. So I listened, ended up, sorry, that story kind of stopped halfway through. What I was getting at is I ended up listening to old music because back then it was pure economics. I could go to the flea market and get 20 record albums for 20 bucks, or I could go to the music store and get one CD for 20 bucks. And I was like, I want more music. Why would I want only one album when I could get 20? And I did. I used to go to the flea market like every week with, whatever I had, a $10 bill or a $20 bill, and just get records. And I collected quite a few over the years. I've since gotten rid of the grand majority of them, with rare exception. Music for the masses. Well, I got bored with music that was popular at the time. It was just so, I don't know, uninteresting to me. And as mentioned, I'd been abroad and came back. A whole lot happened, and I was just really not into the present moment anymore. I was just like, okay, life sucks. Why don't I listen to something from another time? So I actually got really interested into like pre-Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple, like when they were still a psychedelic band. That stuff was really good. I really don't care for Deep Purple post Machine Head when they went just strictly rock. Their earlier stuff from before that was really good though. Big fan. And it was also kind of fun. I kind of think about that whole episode or period in life almost 25 years ago. It was kind of like the equivalent, I guess, of the YouTubers over 40 thing that's going on right now. Because in collecting all of these old records, I often got to meet the people who had them when they were new, or I got to know one record seller in particular rather well. Eventually I started selling records for him at the flea market. But he was older than me. He was older than my parents even. And so he had lots of really cool, old stories and things. And so I'd be able to ask him, questions about that time period, and he would have greater detailed answers than my mom and dad would, because he was about 5 or 6 years older than them. So his perspective was different on stuff, just with that few years difference, right? And so I kind of liked it for that, because I could kind of ask for another person's view from that generation, right? I imagine that's kind of like what goes on when somebody clicks on content today, that seems like, ah, that might help me with something. Click. Yeah. What's fun is I still know one of the record vendors who I kind of got to know back in those days. I would have still been in high school. I used to drive when I got my license and I could drive by myself. I would drive to the next town over and go record shopping, and that's when I could get cooler records. I started getting like really, really neat Beatles ones. I started getting picture discs. I started getting colored vinyl. I started getting just albums that were not $1. Albums that were much more costly than that, but worth it. I actually listened to a lot of Pink Floyd over the years. When I still have my copy of The Wall on DVD, the actual movie. The Wall. It's one of my faves. So yes, Pink Floyd for sure. I liked their psychedelic stuff from the early days, but I think like a lot of people, I enjoyed, post Dark Side of the Moon too. Even though I liked Almagama and metal, like the more psychedelic experimental stuff, that was fun too. I actually had a copy of Wish You Were Here on vinyl, and it was still in its original black, opaque black shrink wrap with the sticker on it. And it had all of the like inserts inside it too. I sold it a couple of years back for a little bit of money because I was like, I'm not listening to this, and it's purely a collector's item, and I don't have room for it anymore. So I don't have it, but I did have it for like 20 years. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, wish you were here. It's funny, now I'm thinking about all these associations I have with different songs and albums that don't make sense temporally. When we were in Spain, of course, it was the mid-90s. Cars did not have CD drives, only a cassette deck, and we didn't have like virtually any cassettes with us. And I think there were two. I didn't lose my mind, thankfully, because in the car, if it was a long car ride or something, I had a Discman, so I listened to my Discman with my earphones. But when I didn't have that with me and we were just traveling somewhere close, the cassettes were, I remember like 4 albums really well, and they're very disparate. There's Sergio Mendes and the Brazil 66. It was like a greatest hits CD that somebody pirated onto a cassette for us. So like the samba version of Fool on the Hill, the Beatles song, yeah, they made that into a samba. It's on that album. Anyway, there was that one. There was the Beatles' Abbey Road, of all albums, Abbey Road. It was 1995, but we were listening to all this music from the 60s. Another one was, I forget what number the album is, but it's one of those Chicago albums. It's the one with a map of Chicago on it. I want to say 7. Is that the 7th album? I don't remember. But anyway, it's the album with Vote For Me on it, Policeman, what's that other song? Little One. I remember hearing that Little One song a lot. And those are the records that I can remember hearing a lot of, even though, again, it didn't make sense with the time. It was all we had. So I memorized those albums. Yeah, I have some new records that I've bought. My strict rule for collecting records now, yes, I have a rule. In the old days, it was all about just collecting records, whatever I could find. If it was in decent condition, score, let's grab it. Now, I don't tend to buy them used, I tend to buy them new. So they're a lot more expensive. But I also have the stipulation that they have to be an album that I know well and enjoy thoroughly, like all the songs from it. And it's from my own lifetime. That's the thing. Because I had a lot of music from the 60s and 70s on record years ago. Lots and lots of stuff from the 60s and 70s. And some 80s, but not a ton. And now I'm just like, okay, I don't need to listen to stuff from the past, nor do I need to listen to have physical great big copies of it. That's the reason I'm kind of strict about it now, is like, well, if it's gonna take up a lot of space and stuff in my home, it better be worth it. Like, it better be good. It better be something I'm actually gonna play. And if it isn't, then let's not buy it. Which is good, because, you know, records be expensive. I actually just ordered one. It's a vinyl re-release of an album that came out in 1999, and I really like the whole thing, so it's worth it. The other thing I often will do, if I'm collecting now, if it's available, I will definitely pay the extra, like 10 or 15 bucks often, for the deluxe version of an album, like with an extra disc of content, extra art in it, or colored vinyl. Any of those little extras, I will pay extra for those. That's true. I know that might make me into a bit of a tough customer, I realize, but that's why. I don't have a lot of space, and nor do I have a lot of money either. So when I spend it on something like that, I really want it to be the best value. Can you tell my grandparents were immigrants? The value. Where's the value in that? Yeah, it's true. I actually have, it's on my Amazon wish list. I should start publishing my wish list so you can see it. I want another record player. I have one that is fine and there's nothing wrong with it at all, but it doesn't have CD capability. And I still have a few CDs that I wouldn't mind being able to play. I can't play a CD at all anymore. My computer doesn't have a drive, and I don't have a stereo that does. So I'm trying to get my mitts on a record player that does have a CD drive in it. That would be great. Because the one I have right now doesn't. But hopefully I can find one that I like, in an aesthetic that I like. That would be good. Motown is good. I like Motown too. The other music that I heard a ton of growing up, like a ton, just because of my parents' age. I probably know all of the words to every yacht rock song that's out there. Like, any and all of the Hall & Oates songs, and of course, now that I'm trying to conjure up the titles, I can't think of it. Africa by Toto, you know. That's a funny one. Um, it's a funny idea because I remember mentioning the song Africa when my kid was in the room one day, and I was like, "Oh, you wouldn't know. It's this really old song." And I just kind of, I bless the rains down in it, and he was like, "I know, Mom. I've heard that song, like a lot." And I was like, "Oh, you have?" And he said, "It's a meme." And I was like, "Sorry, I didn't know that. I just assumed you wouldn't know because it's a really old song." Sorry. Oh yeah, that happened too with I don't know if any of you guys would know it, but it came out in 93. I remember it really well. It was a song called What Is Love by Hadaway. It's kind of Euro trash dance, um, but very, very popular. And it was on in a video someplace. My kid was there. I remember him being around, and I was like, "What is love? That's amazing." And he was like, "Yeah, Mom, it's a meme." And I was like, "I didn't know that. I just remember it when it was a new song." Just trying to point that out. It's funny. I guess that's why I have this way of feeling like I need to explain all the time, because I always feel like, you know, my kid is watching somewhere in the ether behind me or something, being like, "Mom, everybody knows that. Why do you act like nobody knows that?" Because I just act like people don't know anything until they tell me what they do know, and then it's all good. That's all. It's not because I'm trying to be belittling. Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the soundtracks that I heard. There was a lot of like soundtracks that I remember. Uh, Having like the cassettes for. I'm just remembering the album art, like Dirty Dancing. With that, you know, with the image, you know, with her in the art. Um, I remember that soundtrack really well. I remember Beverly Hills Cop and that soundtrack. I remember. Oh, there was another one that I was just thinking of. Come on. Come on. Ah, it's gone. I can't remember it. Shoot. But yeah, I remember lots of learning all the words to everything because I was the quiet kid, right? So if you're not saying words, you're busy listening to words and memorizing them. At least that's what I did as a way to cope. Oh yeah, of course, Top Gun. Yeah. Back when Tom Cruise was, you know, acceptable. I never did see Maverick. One day he'll grow up. Well, yeah, he'll grow up. But I don't think I don't think it's in the cards that I will ever be considered a person who knows anything, at least not in his mind, probably. That's weird. That's a weird kind of area that I find tricky to. Do I have an opinion on autism? Not particularly. I suppose I would consider the uptick in it just an indication that we're better at diagnosing it. Kind of like ADHD and conditions like that. They're just so much more knowledgeable than they used to be. I don't remember. Did they do anything with AI or CG or something with the Top Gun Maverick movie? I seem to remember them saying that they were going to do something because of Tom Cruise's age or something like that, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since that movie came out, so I don't know for sure anymore. So it could be that they improved his chest or something, and that's why he would, dare go shirtless in a movie like that. No, it was all him. Oh, okay. I don't remember if that was just a rumor I heard or if I just imagined it. Hard to say. Not sexy anymore. Well, he's a lot older than in those days. Same could be said for a lot of those old action stars. Like, although I don't know for sure because I haven't seen any of them in such a long time, but so I don't want to just go throwing out names. How old is he now? Oh, probably late 50s? I would think he's late 50s, maybe early 60s. Like, I think he's younger than my mom and dad. I think he's like Gen X. I think. But I certainly don't know. Yeah, 58, 60. That's what I would have thought. I thought he was around there. Come to think of it, that's a song that kind of made him super famous. Bob Seger, Old Time Rock and Roll. Right? Risky Business. With the slide, yeah. I'm just thinking about it. Because that's that famous piano riff, and he was sliding into a doorway. Right? It's a long time ago. If my sister, yeah, in like, was it just a shirt? I think it was like a button-down shirt that was probably unbuttoned, and yeah, like underwear. He was very, very young. Like, only when you're like 20 would you ever do that in a movie, But that was a good song. I like that. That whole record actually is a good record. I have it. Stranger in Town. If my sister was here, she would say that I'm probably technically a Gen X too. I don't think I am. Not that it really matters. This is just a labeling system that is arbitrary. Because I was born in March of '81. So like just into the new year of 81, closer to 80. Yeah, I remember that now. I know what you meant. You meant tidy whities, not tidy Whitneys. I know what you mean. It's okay. Well, I wonder what this is like now. Wow. There you go. There's the brownies. They're cool now. I'm gonna take it out of the pan and let it sit, and then ice them. Yes, I think technically I fall into the millennial category, but I don't know. These things are arbitrary and ultimately don't really have a ton of meaning. So I think, yeah, technically millennial. Does it matter all that much? Not really. I have a lot in common with Gen X. I love the Muppets in a way that Gen Z, like kids my kids' age, don't get. I don't think they understand the Muppet thing. Yeah, these are gonna be good brownies, I think. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my cooling rack and sit them on there. There. Now they can finish. Aw, Swedish Chef, yeah. One of my favorite Muppet movies that we had on tape, because we taped it, it was on TV, so we taped it, was The Muppets Take Manhattan. Loved that one. That was so good. I still love that. I would still watch it. I seem to remember the Swedish Chef being in that one too. Just for a minute. I liked it though because of Rizzo the rat and all his rat friends that worked in the little restaurant, little cafe. Can you imagine? That would have been so funny to be shooting a movie with all these Muppet rats in a restaurant. And how all the actors who were humans just kind of behaved like, this is totally normal. Rats in a restaurant. That's funny. Well, my phone is gonna die pretty soon. So, oh yeah, I've seen that. That's a terrifying movie. I remember being really unnerved by it. There's a few of those kind of cartoons from back then that are like not what you would expect for a cartoon. Never mind for a kid's movie. What was that other one? The Black Cauldron or... No, The Dark Crystal. I think that's from that period. But I don't think that's animated. There's a few though that were like meant for kids. Some of them were animated movies, some of them were not. They were like Muppets kind of movies, but still eerie and kind of like, huh? Is this actually meant for kids or is this like for adults or like what? I don't know. Yeah, I just remember the rats of Nim being spooky, scary, didn't like it. But then again, there were movies that I did watch repeatedly that I think about now and go, how did I watch that repeatedly and not just like have my soul get crushed, because my generation, our version of Bambi came out in the form of The Land Before Time, the original Land Before Time, not the like 11 movies or whatever that came after. um, the original Land Before Time, you know, where mom dies, you know. But I did watch it. I watched that one a lot. I also watched An American Tail. Those were also Don Bluth cartoons. Both of those. His cartoons, I shouldn't call them cartoons. His movies tended to be heavier and sadder, for sure. Movie scares me the most. I don't tend to get scared. Um, hmm. I guess a movie that is not scary as in it's a horror film, but it's scary in how it demonstrates the banality of evil quite well. Um, oh, yes, you did. You made Valentine's Day just fine. I hope that I was helpful too in that regard. It's another old movie with just trying to get it right. That was Sir Richard Attenborough, not David. Yeah, Sir Richard, before he was a sir. It was called, I think it was just called Rillington Place. I have a copy on DVD and no way to play it, which is too bad because it's worthwhile. It's all about the case of John Christie, who lived on Rillington Place in England, in London, in Notting Hill. And they've actually renamed the street, and they like took down the house because what he did was he lured people into his home and killed them and hid them under the floorboards. It's like one of those horrifying true crime British stories. It's like terrifying. And Richard Attenborough played the character, John Christie. And he had the whisper and the kind of raspy voice and everything. Like he looked and sounded like him. And it was terrifying in that way. So they actually shot some of the movie in that place. Like it was a combination of drama, and yet there was like some reality there that's like really eerie, which I think is why it's eerie to me. Not that it's like a horror film. I saw that, yeah, Poltergeist, it's not, scary in that kind of a way, but the fact that it was a true story and some of it was filmed on location where it took place and, like, that'll get under my skin. Ugh. Yeah, definitely spooky. But I like that kind of thing. Because that's, I think, more than special effects or kind of the strange circumstances that surround typical horror movies. I think that's what gets to me more so than what I just described. Because what I just described, it's kind of easier. It's easier to just kind of maintain that, like, this is just a movie. This is just pretend. It's easier to kind of keep that in mind so that if you have a jump scare, you're just like, oh, well, of course I was going to have a jump scare. But if you're dealing with, true crime or something like that, that's being reenacted relatively faithfully to how records indicated that it all happened, like, ooh, yeah, that's uncomfortable. I have books too about that particular crime. It's an interesting crime, that story. Yeah, demonic stuff is like, I don't know. It's just easier to be like, yeah, that's just pretend. We're good. But um, but the other stuff, you know, it actually happened. That really happened. Ugh. Yuck. Well, I think truth can be scarier than fiction. Um, or even less predictable. That's what I find. That's actually one of the things, that's one of the reasons I didn't do fiction when I was in university, because you could pick. In the school that I went to, you had a choice. You could study drama, like playwriting, poetry, which is what I did, creative nonfiction, and fiction. Those were like the 4 subspecialties. And a lot of people were like, yay, fiction. And I was like, see, I would never pick fiction. And people would ask me, they're like, why not? And I was like, because there's too much made up stuff. I can't make stuff up like that. I can't like make up a narrative. It just wouldn't, it would just sound pretend. Like it wouldn't be plausible. I just know that about myself. I tend to need facts. What's great about poetics, though, is that it doesn't rely solely on fact. You have license, that's what I like. I don't know about demonic things. Sometimes, like, weird things have happened. My mom used to live in a building that they used to say was haunted, and there were electrical things, like the lights would flicker. I remember the door, there was a great big door in the hallway that would sometimes close on its own. And they used to say, oh yeah, there's a ghost that lives here. And I'm like, okay, this building happens to be over a century old. I don't know if it's ghosts. Could just be there's an electrical problem and the place isn't level anymore, so the door is swinging shut. I don't know. Yeah. And when it comes to writing fiction, you kind of have to inhabit that world so that you can follow the plot, because you're the one writing it and creating it. And I can't. I'm very much rooted in the real world that way. That's why, like, when I was first getting to know my now ex-husband, you know, he and his family and stuff, they're all into fantasy, massive fantasy people. They really like that genre, and I just don't like that genre at all. I never did. I couldn't get into it. They're like, why not? It's all so great. And I'm like, I got real world things to think about. I don't have time for fantasy. I realize that's not very fair. I was 20 years younger, so forgiveness. But I still don't really get the genre. I just try not to be scared of things. I think that's probably the best way to go. Well, I hope that you guys have had a slightly more entertaining Valentine's than before, maybe. And hopefully, I think there's probably some video ideas out in, as a result of this live that, I could take and flesh out. That might be helpful, maybe. I don't know. I'm always looking for ideas for that sort of thing because, as I said earlier, I'm always kind of worried about, making it all about me and who cares about me and listening to me prattle on. So any information from the people who actually do want to watch that's what I need. Well, you're welcome. I am going to also, I think, bid us all good night. It's been a long one, and it was fun, though. I'm glad I eventually was able to kind of get some words out. It's another one of my problems. It's feeling tongue-tied. I will enjoy the rest of my weekend. I hope you do too. Well, that might be a fun idea if people are interested. I can do a live stream with where we kind of, I don't know, maybe look at the records. I think I might have shown them in a video, but I'm not sure if I did or not. Because I have a few that are fun, that are not all that old. So, anyway. It was nice to see all of you. Some of you have been here this whole entire time, and it's been a long time, so kudos. Well, I think I will bid us adieu. It was nice to see ya. Bye.